My mom hated me because I was born freakishly strong. My sister said, "Dad's getting a new wife. Help me get rid of this old hag, and the new mom will get me into a rich family." Later, my mom sold me to a 47-year-old man who'd been divorced twice. She said, "I gave birth to you. I raised you. Can't you do this one thing for me?" When he lunged, I kicked him so hard he ended up in the hospital. They all called me a monster. Nobody told me what happens when a monster decides to stop holding back. Maya never thought she'd done anything wrong. She was born strong. At 3 she could carry her own little stool. At 5 she hauled a full bucket of water. At 8 she lugged 2 bags of rice up the stairs for her grandma, and the neighbors all said that kid sure has some muscle. Grandma said it too. "Maya, you're amazing," she'd beam. "Someday whoever marries you won't have to worry about a thing." Her mom didn't see it that way. Maya remembered it so clearly. She was 7, and she'd accidentally crushed a glass in her hand. The look her mom gave her was venomous. That night she heard her parents arguing through the bedroom door. The words slid under the crack and burrowed into her ears like needles. "It's your mother's fault. I told her I didn't want to go through with it, but she insisted on a natural birth. That child was wrong inside me from the start. Who knows what kind of folk remedy your mother used?" All right, keep your voice down." "I will not." "Look at her. Does she look like a girl to you? That freakish strength is terrifying. Who's ever going to marry her? What family would want a monster like that?" Maya curled up under her blanket and stared at her own hands. She squeezed. The fabric gave way, and a little puff of cotton pushed out through a hole she'd torn. It looked like a tiny wound. After that night, she learned how to hide. At school she pretended she couldn't twist the cap off a water bottle and asked her deskmate to do it. In PE she'd throw the shot put deliberately short, letting the other kids laugh at her. When Grandma taught her chores, she trained herself to hold back. It didn't matter. Her mom still hated her. Then her little sister Chloe was born, and the hatred became a comparison game. Chloe looked like Mom, pale skin, big eyes, a smile with 2 perfect dimples. And more importantly, Chloe was normal. When Mom held Chloe, her eyes glowed with a warmth Maya had never once felt directed at her. Maya was 6 when she was sent away. Mom said they were going to visit Grandma. Maya was so happy the whole way there. When they arrived, Mom told her to wait by the door while she went to buy candy. Maya stood there obediently and waited. She waited until the sky turned dark. She waited until Grandma came out and tugged her gently inside. She waited until she finally understood, Mom wasn't coming back. She lived with Grandma for 10 years. In all that time, Mom came back only 3 times. Once when Grandma passed away, she showed her face and left. Once for Chloe's birthday, to buy some farm-fresh eggs, and she glanced at Maya as an afterthought. And once when Maya got into college, to discuss her application. Except it wasn't a discussion. It was an order. "You'll apply to the same school as Chloe." "But Mom, my scores could get me into." I said, "The same school as Chloe." Mom's nails were long, and she jabbed them into Maya's forehead with every syllable. "You need to go there and take care of your sister. Maya, you can't be this selfish." Maya didn't dare argue. Back then she was still naive enough to hope. Maybe Mom just wanted her to be closer to Chloe. Maybe at the same college they'd talk more. Maybe, just maybe, Mom might start to like her. She'd been so painfully naive. Her first year of college she worked herself ragged, every shift she could get, every page of every textbook. She won a scholarship. $700. She was giddy for days. Finally, she wouldn't have to beg Mom for next semester's living expenses. But before she could even catch her breath, Mom came for it. "I heard you got a scholarship. $700. Transfer it to your sister. She's almost out of money. You're her older sister. Show some consideration." Maya's grip tightened around her phone. Before she could answer, Chloe peeked out from behind Mom with that honeyed grin of hers. "Yeah, Maya, that scholarship should have been mine anyway. You got it because you reported me for cheating. You really have the nerve to keep it." "I didn't report you." Maya's voice trembled. "The security camera caught you. The whole school knows." "What does that have to do with me?" "It was you." Chloe's voice pitched into a shriek. "You've always been jealous of me. Jealous that Mom loves me more. Jealous that I'm prettier than you. Normal. Enough." Mom's palm cracked across Maya's face. Maya didn't dodge. Or maybe she didn't have time. The sting of that slap was carved into her bones. She'd taken so many over the years. The mark bloomed hot across her cheek. She deserved that. Chloe laughed behind Mom. "Mom, Maya's just trying to stir up trouble. She's miserable, so she wants to wreck this family too." "Oh, I see." Mom nodded, already reaching for the wire hanger. "Maya, looks like a year of college has made you forget who's in charge here." The hanger hissed through the air. Maya's body curled inward on instinct. She was back in that old house, back before she'd been shipped off to Grandma's. Every time Chloe cried, Mom would whip her with a hanger and say it was her fault for upsetting her sister. She'd kneel on the floor and beg, "Mom, I didn't do anything, she's just hungry." But the hanger kept coming, one blow after another, like rain, a dense and aching rain. She could have fought back. She was strong. She could shatter this table with one punch. She could lift Mom off the ground with one hand. She could make everyone in this house too terrified to ever touch her again. But she held it in. Because she was the monster. And if the monster hurt someone, that would be unforgivable. The hanger landed on her back, her shoulders, her arms. Once, twice, 3 times. Mom's face was twisted, not like a mother's at all, more like someone staring at an enemy. "You really are an ungrateful freak." Spittle hit Maya's cheek. "I should never have given birth to you." Maya didn't cry. Her tears had dried up long ago. She just lifted her head and looked past Mom, to Chloe. Chloe smiled at her. A smile made of triumph, made of venom. "See," that smile said. "I told you. She'll never believe a word you say." That night Maya wasn't allowed to eat. She was sent to her room with her stomach growling. She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, thoughts tangling into a snarled mess. She kept seeing what she'd witnessed that afternoon. Her father. A woman. The two of them wrapped around each other, laughing and strolling into a restaurant. She'd frozen on the sidewalk, certain she was seeing things. But that profile, that red dress, the intimacy in the way they moved, it was all real. She'd grabbed Chloe's arm. "You saw it too, right? We have to tell Mom." Chloe had yanked her arm away. "Tell her what?" "So she can get even more stressed." "It's probably nothing." "It's not nothing. I saw it with my own eyes." Chloe had ignored her. 20 minutes later, the three of them, Dad, Maya, Chloe, plus the woman in the red dress were sitting at the same table. Dad cleared his throat, still figuring out how to start. Chloe spoke first, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Daddy, is this our new mom? She's so pretty." Maya shot to her feet. "Chloe, have you lost your mind?" "Maya." Dad's voice dropped, cold. "How is it that your younger sister knows how to behave better than you do?" Chloe gave a placating little laugh and pushed Maya back into her chair. The rest of the meal passed in a haze. Chloe kept complimenting the woman, her skin, her youth, her elegance. She said Mom had gotten old and cranky, that she wasn't good enough for Dad anymore. The woman smiled, charmed. "Chloe is such a sweet girl." Dad grinned along, adding that the new mom knew so many wealthy families, that Chloe would marry into money someday, all thanks to her. Everyone was so happy. Everyone except Maya. Chloe grabbed Maya's hand under the table, her smile sickeningly fake. "Sis, you can't breathe a word of this to Mom. If you do, neither Dad nor I will forgive you." She patted Maya's cheek. "Besides, Mom won't believe you anyway." Maya threw a glass of water in Chloe's face and stormed home. She was going to tell her mom. She thought it was her last chance. No matter how much Mom despised her, surely she'd believe something this big. Once Mom knew, she'd see Dad for what he was. She'd see Chloe for what she was. And then what? Maya didn't know. Maybe Mom would cry, scream, divorce him. Maybe Mom would realize the only one who had ever really stood by her was the daughter she'd always hated. Maybe Mom would finally start to love her. Maybe. Mom slapped her. Right in front of Chloe, the sister who had just lied through her teeth. Mom didn't hesitate. She chose Chloe. Maya pressed a hand to her burning cheek, and the tears came at last. Not from the pain. From the understanding that in this house, she wasn't even allowed a maybe. The next morning, a shriek yanked Maya awake. "Mom! Mom, come quick!" Chloe's voice. Maya pushed open her door to find her sister standing in the hallway, cupping her cheek, eyes watery. "Mom, Maya hit me. Look at my face." Mom charged at Maya like a storm. She shoved her hard into the bookshelf, the corner rammed into Maya's lower back and she gasped. "Are you insane, Maya?" Mom clutched Chloe, then turned on Maya with pure loathing. "You really are a monster." Monster. That word again. She'd heard it her whole life, from Mom's mouth, from Chloe's, from relatives. They said she was a monster because her strength wasn't natural, that Mom nearly died giving birth to her, that she was a curse come to collect. But, Mom, I'm not a monster. I'm just a little stronger than most people. I was just born unwanted. Maya looked down at her own hands. These hands had carried Grandma's rice bags, hauled 2 buckets of water, done the work of 3 people during her part-time jobs. These hands had never, ever struck anyone first. But they still called her a monster. Fine. If that's what you want me to be. She lifted her head and looked at Mom and Chloe. And smiled. Yeah. I'm a monster. She took a step forward. Chloe flinched and burrowed deeper into Mom's arms. Are you scared? Neither of them answered. Mom pulled Chloe tighter and edged backward. In that moment, something inside Maya's chest finally unclenched. It felt like putting down a weight she'd been carrying for years. The next few days, the atmosphere in the house shifted. Mom didn't raise her hand anymore. Chloe didn't taunt her to her face. There was something new in the way they looked at her. Fear. Maya didn't care. She was done trying to win anyone over. The turning point came that weekend. Mom knocked on her door with a voice uncharacteristically soft. Maya, come out with me this afternoon. I want to take you to dinner. To apologize. Apologize. That word sounded so foreign coming from Mom's mouth it could have been another language. Maya hesitated. Then Mom added, I haven't been good to you all these years. Let me make it up to you, just a little. Make it up. Maya turned the phrase over in her mind. She'd been waiting 18 years to hear it. Okay. She put on her nicest shirt and followed Mom out. The whole way there, Mom was unusually pleasant, asked about her classes, whether her part-time jobs were too tiring, if her boyfriend treated her well. Maya answered each question. That dead ember inside her began to glow again. Maybe Mom just didn't know how to express it. Maybe underneath it all she did love her. They stopped in front of a restaurant. Mom took her hand and led her up to a private room on the second floor. The moment the door swung open, Maya saw who was waiting inside. A man. Greasy hair, jowly face, shirt rumpled and stained at the collar. He looked Maya up and down and grinned with a mouthful of yellow teeth. So this is your older daughter. She's not bad. Mom's face was a mask of eager smiles. Oh, she's all right. Beneath the table, her hand clamped around Maya's wrist like a vice. My younger daughter's even prettier. Then bring her instead, Maya said. Nobody answered her. Mom shoved her into a chair, still gripping her wrist. Maya stared at the man across from her. 47, twice divorced, with a son 2 years older than her. Mom wanted her to marry him. Maya, you're old enough now. Time to start thinking about marriage. Mom said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. You'll have to leave home eventually anyway. Your sister needs money right now. If you get married, we'll at least get a decent bride price. It's the least you can do. Maya's brain couldn't catch up. You want me to marry him? What, you're not satisfied? Mom's voice hardened. Maya, I gave birth to you. I raised you. Can't you do this one thing for me? Your sister's going to marry rich, and she needs funds to make the right connections. As her older sister, you should be helping. Mom, I don't. Enough. Mom stood up. You two get to know each other. I'll leave you alone. She walked out fast, like she was escaping something. The door clicked shut, and the man immediately slid closer. He smelled of stale cigarettes and sour sweat, and Maya's stomach turned. Why so stuck up? He snorted. Let me tell you something. Your mom and I made this arrangement a year ago. You were supposed to marry me as soon as you turned 20. But instead, you went off and got yourself a boyfriend. Ethan, or whatever his name is. Your mom told me all about him. Did you really think you could hide it? Maya's head snapped toward him. What did you say? I said, your mom was sensible enough to fill me in and deliver you here to close the deal. I can overlook your little rebellion, but from now on you'll cut off that boyfriend and devote yourself to me. His hand landed on her thigh. Just be a good girl. I'll treat you right. He lunged. In that splintered second, Maya's mind flooded with images. Mom's back vanishing down a dirt road when she was 6. The night she kept vigil alone beside Grandma's coffin. Chloe's smug smile at the dinner table. The wire hanger whistling down. The scholarship. The altered college application. Monster. And then the way Mom had smiled in the car and asked, "Does your boyfriend treat you well?" She hadn't been asking out of concern. She'd been locating Maya's soft spot. The man's face was inches away, his breath hot on her skin. A howl tore through the room. Maya had put everything she had into that kick, straight between his legs. With her strength, there'd be blood. There was definitely blood. He collapsed, clutching himself, his face swelling to a purplish red, unable even to scream, just whimpering on the floor. Maya stood over him. She didn't feel a thing. She took another step. "You said my mom sold me to you a year ago. How much was the deposit?" The man could only shake his head frantically, wheezing. "How much?" $2,000. $2,000. She'd lived 18 years in that house, and in the end they'd priced her at $2,000. The police and paramedics arrived together. Mom came rushing back just in time to see the man being wheeled out on a stretcher and Maya being questioned gently by a female officer. "Why did you kick him?" the officer asked, her voice kind. "He tried to rape me," Maya answered, perfectly steady. "You're lying." Mom lunged forward, her face contorted. "He was your fiancé. I arranged this." "You crazy girl, Maya, you're dead." "Ma'am, please calm down." Another officer blocked her. "Your daughter has alleged attempted rape." "Rape? She's my daughter. I decide who she marries. That's none of your business." "Ma'am." The officer's tone hardened. "Arranged marriages are illegal. And if what your daughter says is true, this man's actions may constitute assault or attempted sexual assault." "Attempted nothing. She did it on purpose. You don't understand, she was born with this freakish strength. She's a monster. Do you understand? A monster." Maya stood still, watching her mother unravel. She couldn't feel the pain anymore. She spoke again, quiet and clear. "Officer, I also want to report that my mother accepted a $2,000 deposit for this arrangement without my consent. I believe that constitutes human trafficking. I'd like it investigated." The officer paused, then nodded. "We'll include that in the report." Mom froze. What did you say?" Her voice shrank. "When did I ever take money?" "Maya, don't you dare slander me. The restaurant has security footage. The bank has transaction records." Maya met her eyes. "Do you want me to pull them up?" The color drained from Mom's face. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The restaurant's surveillance footage confirmed everything. The man was taken into custody, though, thanks to the severity of his injury, he was under police guard at the hospital. Maya's actions were ruled self-defense, and no charges were filed. As for the money Mom had taken, the police said it required further investigation. It was dark by the time Maya stepped out of the station. Mom stood by the door, face ashen. You just wait. I'll make you pay for this." Maya walked past her without stopping. "You've lost your mind. If you've got the guts, don't bother coming home." Maya didn't look back. She walked into the night and realized, for the first time in as long as she could remember, breathing felt easy. She didn't go home that night. She went to Ethan's place. When he opened the door, he took one look at her, messy hair, pale face, but eyes burning bright, and pulled her inside. "What happened?" He guided her to a chair. "Are you okay?" "My mom sold me." The words came out flat. "To a 47-year-old man. $2,000. He tried to touch me, so I kicked him." The police came. My mom called me a monster. She said it like she was reading a grocery list. Ethan went very still. Then he crouched in front of her and took her hands. Did he hurt you? Where did he touch you? He didn't. I stopped him with one kick. She paused. My mom's probably going to make things worse. Forget her. The words burst out of him, and he flushed but didn't take them back. I mean it. Forget her. Maya, you can't go back there. That house, it's not a home. Maya didn't answer. I'll rent a place for you. Don't worry about tuition, I'll help. Next semester you'll get the scholarship again, and you can pay me back then. You're not afraid I'll be a burden? A burden? He squeezed her hands, his voice dropping. I'm only afraid you'll keep taking it. I'm afraid someday they'll sell you for real, and I won't be there. She looked down at their hands. His looked small wrapped in hers, but he never pulled away. He never had. Ethan. Yeah. Aren't you scared of me? I'm so much stronger than you. What if someday I'm not scared. He cut her off. The first time I saw you, you were helping an old woman with her grocery bags outside the school gate. They were so heavy a couple of guys couldn't lift them, and you just picked them up with one hand. Then you crouched down and told her, "Take your time, ma'am, I'll carry these home for you." He looked into her eyes. Right then I thought, that girl is incredible. Maya finally broke. She cried harder than she had ever cried in her life, as if every humiliation, every swallowed scream, every tear she hadn't let herself shed over all those years was pouring out at once. Back in the Harper house, things didn't settle down after Maya left. They imploded. The first blow came from the man she'd kicked, Richard Lewis. His son Kevin showed up at the front door, a wall of a guy, 2 years older than Maya but looking a decade harder. He filled the doorway like a fridge. "You're Maya's mother." His voice scraped like gravel. "You know what's happening to my dad right now?" Mom stood inside, face pale. That has nothing to do with me. Your father's the one who... Bullshit. Kevin's fist slammed the doorframe, rattling the whole wall. My dad gave you a $2,000 deposit. You've got the money, the girl never showed, and now my dad's in a jail cell. You're telling me it's got nothing to do with you. I'll return the deposit. Return it. He barked a laugh. You think that covers it? While he's locked up, his shop's losing money. You're looking at 15 grand, easy, to make this right. 15,000. Mom's voice pitched into a wail. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? Why don't you just rob me? No money. Kevin's eyes slid over her. Then I'll let the cops handle it. You did take the deposit. Human trafficking, want to guess what the sentence is on that? The blood drained from Mom's face. She'd been vicious her whole life, but faced with real brutality, she crumbled. I'll figure something out. 3 days. If I don't see the money, I'm calling the cops. He turned and left. And then none of you, not you, not either of your daughters, gets off clean. The moment the door shut, Mom's legs gave out. She slid down against it, shaking. Chloe wandered out of her room. Mom, what's going on? Who was that? It's your sister's fault. Mom's voice cracked. All of this is because of that monster. Chloe watched her mother fall apart, her expression unreadable. After a long pause she crouched down. Mom, we can't pull together 15 grand. Then what do we do? Just wait to be arrested. Chloe's voice went soft. Actually, there is one way. I know a guy. He says for enough cash he can fix anything. But it'd take maybe 7,000. Don't worry though, I can borrow it. Once I marry Brandon, that's pocket change. She paused and tilted her head sweetly. You just need to help me with one thing. We have to make sure Maya doesn't cause any more trouble. If she keeps acting out, Brandon's family won't want anything to do with us. She said it like a devoted daughter calming a frightened mother. But if Maya had been there, she'd have recognized the look instantly. Chloe was weaving a new web, and this time the target was the one remaining person in the house who still had any use at all. Meanwhile, Maya's troubles were multiplying. Richard Lewis's case moved forward, and the police summoned Mom for questioning. Although there wasn't enough evidence to arrest her right away, rumors slithered out. Someone brought them to campus. When Maya walked into class, conversations died. She found her seat, feeling the stares prick her back like needles. Is that really her? Is it true? I heard she kicked a guy so hard he ended up in the hospital. God, that's brutal. And her mom tried to sell her to some old man. Shoo, don't let her hear you. She's insanely strong. Maya's fingers tightened around her pen. She told herself it didn't matter. She'd heard worse all her life: monster, freak, curse. She was immune. But after class, Ms. Walker, her advisor, called her into the office. Maya, some things have reached the administration. Ms. Walker, usually kind, looked uncomfortable. Someone sent an anonymous letter to the dean. It says that although the police cleared you, the incident caused significant reputational damage, and that you're not fit to continue as a student. Maya's chest tightened. Who sent it? Anonymous. The school isn't going to act on one letter, but Maya, be prepared. Once something like this spreads, it's hard to control. Ms. Walker, I didn't do anything wrong. I know. A flicker of pity crossed the advisor's face. But sometimes right and wrong don't matter. What matters is what people choose to believe. Maya left the office and walked down the hallway. A cluster of girls spotted her and quickly lowered their heads, veering away so fast that one of them stumbled into the corner and dropped her water bottle. It shattered. Ah! The girl shrieked, then looked at Maya in panic. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. She was apologizing to Maya. Like prey begging a predator. Maya opened her mouth to say, it's fine, but the words wouldn't come. She just stepped around the puddle and broken glass and kept walking. At the school gate, Ethan was waiting, leaning against his bike. When he saw her, his grin lit up. Class over. How'd it? His smile faltered. What's wrong? Nothing. She shook her head. Let's go. He didn't push. He just walked beside her, wheeling his bike. After a long stretch of silence he said quietly, you don't have to talk. But whenever you want to, I'm here. They walked. Shadows stretched long in the setting sun, hers and his overlapping on the pavement. They called me a monster, she said at last. All these years, still the same word. Who did? It doesn't matter. What matters is, maybe they're telling the truth. Ethan stopped dead. He grabbed her wrist and turned her toward him. Listen to me, Maya. You're not a monster. Being strong is not a flaw. The flaw is in everyone who uses that word to hurt you. You haven't done anything wrong. Do you hear me? His eyes burned with an almost stubborn brightness. She looked at him for a long moment. Okay. But inside she knew, they wouldn't see it that way. Until she could truly leave all this behind, they would always be the majority. That weekend, Chloe's grand networking dinner finally happened. She'd invited a handful of Brandon Shaw's wealthy friends to the house, the connection courtesy of Diana Lee, the woman in the red dress. The idea was to let Brandon get comfortable with Chloe's charming family. Mom had been on her feet in the kitchen since 6 in the morning, shopping, washing, chopping, braising. 12 dishes. Her hands were dotted with oil burns, her back a solid wall of pain. But she didn't dare stop. Chloe had said, "Mom, you have to nail this. My whole future depends on this one dinner." So Mom swallowed her exhaustion and kept going. After everything that had happened, Maya gone, the Lewis family threatening her, her husband never home, the police investigation hanging over her, Chloe was all she had left. If Chloe could marry well, it would all be worth it. The guests arrived in a wave of designer clothes and easy laughter. Chloe fluttered around them, her smile so sweet it could rot teeth. She wore a dress Diana had bought her, makeup flawless, hair perfect, glowing like a star. Mom carried out the last soup, her spine screaming, and set it on the table. She'd been planning to finally sit down and rest, maybe grab a few bites of food. But Chloe glanced at her and said, "Mom, just leave the soup here. You can wait in the kitchen." Mom froze. The kitchen. After 12 hours. Chloe gave her a little flick of a glance, the kind you'd give hired help. "Go on." Mom said nothing. She untied her apron, walked back into the kitchen, and stood among the mountains of dirty dishes and greasy stove tops. From the dining room she could hear the clink of glasses, Chloe's tinkling laugh, the hum of casual arrogance. Nobody mentioned her. Nobody called her out to eat. It was as if the kitchen was the only place she'd ever belonged. Then the doorbell rang. Chloe went to answer it, still smiling. The moment she opened the door, her smile petrified. Diana Lee stood on the doorstep. And she did not look maternal. Chloe Harper. Diana's palm cracked across Chloe's face so loudly the whole room heard it. "You little snake. I open doors for you, I give you connections, and this is how you repay me. Secretly messing around with my son. Who do you think you are? Some third-rate college tramp, and you think you deserve a rich husband?" Chloe staggered, clutching her cheek. "I didn't, Ms. Lee, there's been a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Diana yanked a stack of printed screenshots from her bag and hurled them into Chloe's face. "I went through my son's phone. Late-night chats. Calling him baby. Sending him selfies. You thought deleting them would hide it. He had cloud backup. Every disgusting message. Right there. The papers scattered across the floor, the messages, the photos, the time-stamped desperation. A college girl sending this kind of filth to a man in the middle of the night. Diana's voice climbed. "Let me make this clear, as long as I'm alive, you will never set foot in my family. And I'm making sure you never forget it, right here, in front of all your fancy friends." The room was dead silent. The rich kids exchanged glances, someone stifled a laugh, someone else angled a phone to record. Brandon Shaw stood up, his face a thundercloud, and walked out without a word. "Wait, Brandon." Chloe's panic was real now, raw and ugly. "Don't listen to her, there's nothing between me and her son, I can explain." "Nothing?" Diana laughed. "Then why were you calling him your future husband? Why the pictures?" You sabotage yourself, sweetheart. Don't blame me. She turned on her heel and strode out, heels clicking over the scattered pages. Chloe stood in the wreckage, her face cycling through shades of red and white, trembling. She watched Brandon's back disappear. It was over. Everything was over. She spun around. Her eyes landed on the kitchen doorway, where Mom stood with an untouched dish of appetizers, having witnessed everything. Chloe's eyes went red. This is all your fault. She stormed into the kitchen and ripped the dish from Mom's hands, smashing it to the floor. Porcelain exploded. It's all because of you, you useless thing. All you know how to do is cook. If you had any value, would I have to throw myself at people like that? This is your fault. Chloe, calm down. I won't calm down. She seized another plate and hurled it. What have you ever given me? Nothing. You couldn't even keep Dad. If you were worth anything, he wouldn't have cheated. Mom stood in the minefield of broken dishes, staring at the daughter she had loved more than anything. And Maya. Chloe's voice splintered into a shriek. That freak dared to fight back and you still couldn't handle her. The Lewis family is demanding money and you can't fix that either. You always said I was your favorite, then go get the money. Go drag Maya back here. I don't care how, I'm not paying a single cent of that $15,000. Enough. Mom's voice came out small. Chloe heard it. What did you say? I said enough. Mom unknotted her apron, folded it slowly, and set it on the stove. She looked at Chloe, and her eyes were completely hollow. I beat your sister for over a decade for you. I sent her away to the countryside for you. I sabotaged her college applications for you. I tried to sell her to an old man for you. Her voice was eerily calm. For you, I stopped being a human being. And just now you said you won't pay a cent of that money. Chloe's mouth opened and closed. That woman slapped you in front of everyone, and you didn't dare say a word. Your sister never did anything wrong, and she took my beatings for years. And now you're not angry at the woman who humiliated you, you're angry at me. Mom went on, almost to herself. You know why your father cheated? Because I had no more use. And now I have no more use to you either, do I? Mom. I'm done. Mom turned, walked through the dining room, past the scattered photographs, past Chloe's frozen silhouette, and out the front door into the falling snow. Across the street, Maya stood watching. She'd only come back to grab the last of her things. She saw her mother walking alone through the snowy street, moving slowly, like she'd aged 10 years in a single evening. Maya's foot shifted forward. Then stopped. She didn't follow. She wasn't sure what she would even say. Maya never went back to that house. Ethan found her a tiny studio near campus for $100 a month. The room was barely big enough for a bed and a desk, but it felt like a palace because there were no slaps, no taunts, no whispers of monster. She threw herself into work and study with a ferocity that worried Ethan. Cafeteria shifts, weekend tutoring, night sorting at a shipping warehouse. Her strength meant she could carry 3 boxes at a time, so she got paid more. Ethan brought her food constantly, meals he'd cooked himself, the flavor wildly inconsistent, but she always cleaned the plate. You're going to burn out, he said one evening, watching her shovel fried rice while flipping through a textbook. Can't. I'm strong, she answered without looking up. Strength isn't a food group. Sure it is. She stuffed a piece of pork into her mouth. See? Eating. He tried to scowl, failed, and reached out to ruffle her hair. She dodged, but the corner of her mouth betrayed her. It had become their new language, a glance, a gesture, and they'd find each other's smiles. The peace didn't last. One afternoon Maya was studying in the library when her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. "Maya. It's Ms. Walker. Can you come to the office?" Something in her voice made Maya's stomach clench. When she arrived, she found not only Ms. Walker but two others, Mr. Grant, the associate dean, looking stern at the head of the table, and a woman from student affairs, Ms. Davis. "Maya, please sit down," Mr. Grant said. She sat. The air was thick. "Several concerns have been raised," he began, opening a folder. "First, your scholarship. Someone has alleged that your application materials were falsified." Maya's jaw tightened. "I didn't falsify anything. My grades and ranking qualified. The committee verified everything. Your grades are not in question." Ms. Walker's voice was pained. "The issue is a community service certificate. It was submitted as a handwritten letter rather than the official university template." Maya remembered. That summer she'd spent in her grandma's village, tutoring every kid who showed up. The village chief had written her a thank you letter on plain paper and stamped it with the official village seal. That letter is genuine. It has an official stamp. But it doesn't follow the required format, Mr. Grant cut in. Without the proper template, those points cannot be counted. Removing them drops your ranking below the scholarship threshold. Maya's hands curled into fists under the table. "Is this targeting me specifically?" "Maya, please," Miss Davis said coolly, "the school treats every report fairly. You may appeal if you wish." Second issue. Mr. Grant pressed on. "The incident from last semester. While the police ruled self-defense, the other party's family has filed multiple complaints, claiming you used excessive force and caused severe injury. They've presented a medical report. The injury meets the standard for second-degree assault. They also submitted records from your high school suggesting a history of violent tendencies, including an incident where you allegedly broke a classroom window frame with your bare hands." Maya's breath caught. The window frame. It had been jammed, and several boys couldn't budge it. She'd pushed, and the rotted frame had snapped. The teacher hadn't blamed her, she'd said it needed replacing anyway. Now it was being twisted into proof of violence. Third, Mr. Grant said, closing the folder, your online presence. Someone posted about you on social media, claiming you've boasted about your abnormal strength and used it to threaten others. The comments have generated negative attention for both you and the school. Maya knew exactly what he meant. That day outside the dorm, when Chloe had sneered at Ethan and Maya stepped between them, saying, "Leave him alone." Someone had recorded it, sliced the audio, and spun it into a post titled, "Freak Strong Girl Threatens Her Own Sister." Based on these, the school is initiating a disciplinary review. This is an investigation, not a punishment, yet. During the review, your scholarship is suspended. Mr. Grant closed the folder. Silence. Maya sat motionless. Then she stood. Who filed the complaint? That information is confidential. It doesn't need to be. Her voice was flat. I know exactly who it is. She walked out without another word. The hallway stretched long and gray. Her fists were clenched so tightly her knuckles ached. Chloe. It had to be Chloe. Only she would know about the window frame, the confrontation, the format of a village letter no one else had ever seen. Chloe was dismantling her life piece by piece, using everything she could weaponize. Maya stopped at the end of the hall by a window. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. She looked down at her hands, hands that could haul 3 boxes at once, carry an old woman's groceries, cook Ethan's favorite ribs. Right now they were trembling. Not from fear. From rage. She took a breath, unlocked her phone. A message from Ethan, class done. I'll come get you. She typed, erased, typed again. Finally just, okay. She didn't want him dragged into this. This was her war. At home, Chloe was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, texting her mom, "Did you hear? Maya's scholarship got suspended." Mom didn't reply. She'd barely responded to anything since that night. She was staying with a distant relative across town, coming and going at odd hours. Chloe didn't care. Brandon had ghosted her. Deanna Lee had blocked her. The rich friends had evaporated. But Chloe hadn't given up. She'd found a new contact, a man called Bruno. A friend of a friend, someone who fixed problems. He met her in a tea shop, shaved head, thick gold chain, a dragon tattoo coiling down his forearm. "Who do you need handled?" he asked. Chloe slid a photo across the table. Her. Run her out of town. And the woman my dad's been seeing, Deanna Lee. I want her to suffer too. Bruno picked up the photo. Your sister. Not your business. Can you do it? 7 grand. 4 up front. Fine. Chloe pulled out an envelope. The rest when my scholarship comes through. She paused, adding with a smirk, I have a scholarship too. Bruno pocketed the cash and left. Chloe sat back, a slow smile curling her lips. Without Brandon, all she had to do was remove Maya, and the scholarship money would be hers. The Lewis family could be redirected onto Maya. As for Mom, that useless old woman, she could stay gone forever. What she didn't notice was the figure in the corner of the tea shop, ordinary clothes, face mask, who'd been watching her since she walked in. Bruno moved fast. 3 nights later, Maya was walking home from her warehouse shift when she felt a presence behind her. She sped up. So did they. Maya Harper. She turned. Under a street lamp stood a bald man with a gold chain and 2 cronies behind him, a human wall blocking the entrance to her building. Who are you? Doesn't matter. Bruno grinned, flashing a gold tooth. Someone paid us to deliver a message. Leave town. Don't come back. Agree to that, and everyone stays friendly. Maya's grip tightened on her backpack strap. And if I don't? Bruno glanced sideways. One of his men pulled out a collapsible baton and snapped it open. The metal gleamed under the streetlight. We know you're strong, Bruno said lazily. But you're one person. How many of us can you take? Her heart hammered. She'd never actually fought anyone. These 3 had weapons, and they knew how to use them. She took a step back. That's what I thought. Smart girl. Pack your things. A flashlight beam sliced through the dark. Hey! What's going on over there? It was old Bill, the night security guard from her building. 70 if he was a day, but he marched toward them with his flashlight and walkie-talkie, shoulders squared. I've already called the police. They'll be here in 3 minutes. Bruno stared at him, then at Maya. He let out a cold laugh, flicked his hand, and the 3 of them melted back into the shadows. Old Bill reached her. You all right, Missy? Maya nodded, her voice a little shaky. Thank you. Rough neighborhood these days. You call me next time you're coming home late. I'll walk with you. She thanked him again and hurried upstairs. Behind her locked door, she slid to the floor, her hands ice cold. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan. You home? Just finished studying, wanted to call." She steadied her voice. "Yeah, about to shower. Everything okay?" They chatted lightly. She said nothing about the men. After she hung up, she stared at the ceiling. She couldn't keep being a target. The next day, she got Bruno's number through a chain of contacts that ended, to her surprise, with her mother. Mom's voice on the phone had been strange, heavy with something unspoken. "Bruno runs a tea shop on South Street. He's there Wednesday afternoons." Maya didn't ask why Mom was helping. Maybe guilt. Maybe something else. She didn't have time to dissect it. Wednesday afternoon she skipped a class and walked into that tea shop alone. Bruno looked up, genuinely surprised. "You've got guts." "I'm here to make a deal." Maya sat down across from him. "The person who hired you, how much is she paying?" "Can't tell you that." "I'll double it." "Here's what you do, go back and tell her I'm terrified, I'm dropping out, I'm leaving town. But say you need more money to finish the job. Squeeze her for another payment. After that, I'll pay you extra." Her voice was calm as stone. "This isn't about revenge. It's about teaching her that not everyone can be bought. Today you work for her. Tomorrow you might work against her. I want her to live with that fear, the same fear she's made me live with." Bruno studied her for a long, long moment. Then he laughed, a booming sound that showed all his gold teeth. "You're a lot more interesting than your sister." "Deal." Chloe fell for it completely. Bruno spun a convincing story. Maya was terrified, already packing to flee, but she needed an extra $2,000 to close the deal and make sure Maya never came back. Chloe believed him. She was running low on cash. The scholarship was still frozen during the review, but she couldn't wait. She knew where Mom kept her savings. A passbook in the locked bottom drawer of the wardrobe, key hidden in a little tin box in the vanity. She'd raided it plenty of times growing up. She took the passbook, went to the bank, and withdrew $4,000. 2 went to Bruno. With the rest, she bought herself a designer handbag, marked down, but still $2,500, and treated her remaining acquaintances to a fancy dinner. She needed to keep up appearances, even if the appearance was a lie. Mom found the passbook 3 days later. She'd stopped by the house for a change of clothes. When she opened the drawer and saw the balance, over half her life savings gone, she stormed into Chloe's room. "Chloe! $4,000. Where is it?" Chloe was sprawled on the bed, applying a face mask. "I took it." "You took it? That's my money." "Who told you you could?" "It's the family's money." Chloe peeled off the mask, annoyed. "I needed it. Don't be so stingy. I'll pay you back when my scholarship comes." "What scholarship?" "You were caught cheating. The whole school knows. You've been lying to me for a year." Chloe's expression flickered. "Who told you that?" "Your academic advisor called me. You failed the course, got a formal reprimand, no makeup exams. You've been lying this whole time." The mask of indifference cracked into raw fury. "So what if I lied? What could you have done about it?" "You're useless, Mom. You cook. That's it. If I'd told you the truth, how would you have helped? You can't help anyone." Mom's whole body trembled. "Your father cheated, and you already knew. You called that woman new Mom. Your sister told the truth, and I beat her for over a decade. You stole my savings, and you're standing there telling me I'm useless. She stared at Chloe as if seeing her for the first time. Do you even see me as your mother? Silence. Chloe examined her manicured nails, tiny rhinestones glinting under the light. Then, softly, like a scalpel, she said, Mom, be honest. Do you still have any use to me? Mom's pupils shrank. Think about it, Chloe went on, ticking fingers. Cooking. I can eat out. Laundry. There are machines. Tuition. I'll manage. You can't hold on to Dad, you can't handle the Lewises. You watched that woman slap me in front of everyone and just stood there. So tell me, she lifted her gaze, what value do you have left? The word. That word. Value. Just like Maya had said. Mom's tears finally fell. She turned and walked out. Chloe shouted after her, if you leave now, don't bother coming back. Mom didn't turn around. She walked down the street with no destination, and all she could see was Maya at 6 years old, standing by Grandma's front door, waiting for a mother who'd promised candy and never returned. Karma. It was karma. The hospital called Maya at 11 that night. Are you a relative of Susan Harper? She's been in a car accident. She's in the ER at City General. Maya nearly dropped her phone. She arrived to find her mother in a hospital bed, bandage around her forehead, left arm in a cast, face pale as the sheets. The doctor said exhaustion and a driver running a red light, at low speed, thank God. Soft tissue damage, a hairline fracture in her forearm, mild concussion. She'll need to stay for observation. You're her daughter. Yes. Settle the admission at the front desk. Maya stood by the bed, looking down at the woman she'd called Mom for 18 years. She looked so much older, cheekbones sharp, eyes sunken. A nurse was taking her blood pressure when Mom's eyes fluttered open. It took a moment for her to focus. Maya. Yeah. Mom's face crumpled, and the tears came. Your sister, she asked me, what use I still had. Maya said nothing. I'm so sorry. Mom shut her eyes. All these years, what have I done? I threw you away, I beat you, I ruined your future, I tried to sell you to that man. She couldn't go on. Maya stood there, waiting for the satisfaction to come. The vindication. But it felt like dropping a stone into a very deep well. No echo. Rest, she said finally. We'll talk later. She went to pay the bill. In the hallway, a TV in the waiting lounge flickered with the late news. Police have busted a marriage fraud ring that scammed multiple victims out of more than $300,000. The primary suspect, a woman identified as Diana Lee, has been taken into custody, and her assets have been frozen. Diana Lee's photograph flashed on screen. Maya stood still, watching, then continued to the payment window. She handed over her debit card. The balance was low, but she didn't hesitate. As she typed her PIN, she realized the truth sitting cold and certain in her chest. That house, that family, they were already gone. She decided to leave the city. Not yet, after graduation. 2 years to save enough money, then she and Ethan would go somewhere no one knew them. She'd pictured a small town by the sea, humid air, winters without snow. A normal job. A normal life. Would you be okay with that? She asked Ethan. He was helping her organize her shift schedule and looked up. Okay with what? Coming with me. Leaving the city. Sure. He said it like it was obvious. I can code anywhere. My mom thinks you're great, by the way. You fixed her sink faster than a plumber. She keeps asking when you're coming for dinner again. Maya ducked her head, a smile slipping through. Then after graduation. We go together. He took her hand. It's a promise. Spring was slipping into the air, magnolias blooming white as snow in the dusk. This city wasn't good or bad, but it had never been home. This time, though, she wasn't leaving alone. On graduation day, Maya stood at the school gate in her cap and gown, diploma in hand, while Ethan snapped a photo. She posted it online, and the likes and congratulations rolled in. She scrolled past them, then paused. At the very bottom of her message list was a thread from Chloe, the last message sent 6 months ago. Maya, I know I was wrong. Can you lend me some money? Maya hadn't replied. She'd heard the rest through the grapevine. Chloe never graduated, too many failed classes, caught cheating again on a makeup exam, her enrollment revoked. Bruno got arrested in a separate case and, during questioning, spilled everything about Chloe hiring him. The police took Maya's statement, but the evidence was thin, and no charges were filed. Still, the rumors sealed Chloe's reputation, and she left town for a neighboring state, trying to make a living as a live streamer. Viewers said she looked 10 years older than her age. Their father fared no better. After Diana's arrest, his financial schemes unraveled. He ended up on a blacklist, bank accounts frozen, and when he tried to beg Mom for a second chance, she refused to see him. As for Mom, after the hospital, she didn't go back. She rented a tiny place on the edge of town, lived alone. Occasionally she'd go to the market, sometimes sit on a park bench doing nothing. On holidays, she'd text Maya from an ancient phone, "Have you eaten yet?" Maya replied sometimes. Sometimes she didn't. She never deleted the messages. The morning they left, the sky was a hard, clear blue. 2 suitcases, a potted pothose Maya had nursed for a year, and a taxi to the train station. As they crossed town, Maya said, "Can we take a detour?" South Street. The car turned down a road half demolished, old buildings gaping with broken windows. She had the driver pause at the mouth of an alley. She rolled down the window and looked at the familiar building entrance. The lock was broken, the door ajar. Dead plants trailed through the security bars like skeletal fingers. A notice was pasted beside the door, "Utilities suspended. Outstanding balance, $670. She gazed at it for a long breath. Then she rolled the window up. "Go ahead, driver." Ethan reached for her hand as the car pulled away, past fallen blossoms scattering like pale confetti. "Are you sad?" "Not sad," she said. "Just hollow. Like something got scooped out and I haven't gotten used to the shape of the hole yet." "You will." "I know." She leaned back and closed her eyes. The images flickered past, the dust of a country road, a funeral she'd faced alone, the sting of a wire hanger, the weight of a stolen scholarship, the stench of a man's breath, the glint of Bruno's gold tooth, the sound of her sister's voice asking, "What value do you have left?" and her mother's tears on a hospital pillow. All of it. Gone. What came next was hers. By the time spring rolled around again, Maya was 23. She and Ethan had settled in a small coastal town, the kind where salt misted the air every morning. She worked as a copy editor at a small press, he wrote code for a software firm. Their combined income covered rent, groceries, and a little left over each month. Ethan had kept his birthday promise. He'd really learned to cook. He still cut his fingers and misjudged the heat, but his braised ribs were starting to taste like hers. "What do you want for your birthday dinner?" he asked that evening, standing in their tiny kitchen surrounded by grocery bags. "Braised ribs," she said. "I knew it." He grinned, picking up a cleaver. "Don't you ever get tired of them?" "Never." "Then every year." "I'll make them every year." Maya watched him from the doorway. The setting sun gilded his shoulders. He looked so determined, chopping away, bone chips flying. She stepped in and gently took the knife. "Let me." "Hey, I'm practicing. At this rate the bones will end up in the neighbor's yard." She took over, the blade falling into a steady rhythm, and for a flicker of a moment she thought of her mother's hands, the same rhythm on a different cutting board, years ago. She didn't think about her often anymore. Last month Mom had sent a text out of nowhere. "Maya, I saw a little girl in the park today, 2 pigtails, just like you used to wear." I sat there and watched her for a long time. Maya hadn't replied. But that weekend she'd bought a cheap phone card and called. The phone rang and rang before Mom picked up, voice startled. "Maya." "Yeah." Silence. Then, "Have you eaten?" "Yeah." "You?" "Yeah." Another pause. Maya said, "I've got to go, Mom." "Okay. Take care of yourself." "You too." It was their only call in over a year. When Maya hung up, she realized the memory didn't make her cry anymore. Maybe that was what past meant. Not forgetting, just the ache settling so deep it became a part of you, no longer a fresh wound, just an old one that twinged on rainy evenings. "Maya, the oil's hot." Ethan's voice yanked her back. She slid the ribs into the pan. The kitchen filled with a rich, savory cloud. Through the window, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and the sea breeze brought the salt tang of tide. In this little town, spring arrived early, the redbud trees were already in full bloom. After dinner, Ethan produced a small cake from the fridge, lopsided and uneven, with wobbly letters and strawberry jam. "Happy birthday, Maya." She laughed. "That handwriting is awful." "Awful but heartfelt." "Candles." 23. Make a wish. She closed her eyes, the candle flame warming her face. She'd never made a birthday wish before. At home, only Chloe got cakes. Grandma had given her one once, but the next year Grandma was gone. After that, no more birthdays. Until Ethan. She blew out the candles. He nudged her. "What did you wish for?" "Can't tell." "It won't come true." "Oh, come on." She didn't tell him. The wish was simple, that life would keep being exactly this. No slaps. No monster. No betrayals and schemes. Just this small apartment, this clumsy man, and a plate of ribs she'd never get tired of. Outside, someone lit fireworks. They burst over the sea, red, gold, green, painting the dark water in light. Ethan hurried to the window, waving her over. "Maya. Come look." She joined him. One after another they bloomed and scattered. He watched, mesmerized, the colors flickering in his eyes. "Beautiful, right?" he said. "Beautiful," she agreed. Then she looked down at her hands. These hands had been called proof of a monster. They'd carried rice, hauled water, absorbed the bite of a hanger, defended against a predator. They'd cracked glass and blankets and had held themselves back when it would have been so easy to let go. Now one of them was wrapped in another hand, a hand that had never flinched from her strength. She squeezed it gently. "Ethan." "Thank you." "For what?" For thinking I was amazing the first time you saw me. He turned, looking at her the way someone looks at a thing of infinite value. And now? He asked. What do you think you are now? Outside, the fireworks peaked, the biggest one yet, showering gold. She smiled, her voice almost lost in the boom. Still amazing. The hands they'd called monstrous were holding an ordinary hand. Holding it just right.